Over on Reverb, there's a little shop called the Acoustic Room that Landon runs, and he specializes in high-end art guitars. These aren't for your typical player. Many times they can be seen as maybe a bit too gaudy, but occasionally you see some really cool knockout ideas. For example, my Dragon Les Paul. It's because he custom ordered it out of Gibson that thing even exists. And obviously the master luthiers who birthed it. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I fell in love with this little Panda. Pandas, they look like this. They got the white and the black. And portraying that on a guitar would be a little bit difficult, but they came up with this great idea to use abalone on the edges for the hands and the feet and the ears and the circles around the eyes, and then really nice mother of pearl for the white portions of it. And now zooming out, you can actually tell our Clusen tips are made of mother of pearl too. You definitely do not see that every day, and I love the way that the lacquer has aged a little bit on this one because, hey, it is 20 years old now. Now, despite this shop being called the Acoustic Room, he does more than acoustics, but a lot of them are fancy sound boxes. So nothing too crazy going on with our top here. But if we zoom in on our pickguard, we also have a little Panda dude there. Lots of cool wood grain in that rosewood board. Kind of an interesting choice to repeat the same Panda pattern all the way up and down the neck. Then by the 12th fret, they transition into block inlays, and this one reads Jennifer. I wonder if this was named after the person who custom ordered it, or is his girlfriend or something, or is there a specific Panda out there in the world named Jennifer that this is based on? Moving on to the back now, you can see it's a nice figured maple. And wow, the edges are also maple and they're looking great. It's got that nice flame figuring, but yet it's like almost just barely into quilt territory. I'd say the back looks a little bit better in this angle. So you tell me, is this gaudy or not? I would love to see this re-envisioned as a Les Paul custom. Leave the headstock alone except for put binding on it. Go ahead and do the mother of pearl tips again. But make it a combination black and white tuxedo custom, kind of like what we talked about here. I'm not sure if I would go white top, white back with black sides and like a black neck with white stinger, or how exactly we would do it, but I would love to see that. And I'd probably just leave it a regular bound ebony fretboard with your typical really nice mother of pearl block inlays. The problem is getting Gibson to like reissue old designs that they did 20 years ago. I'm not sure if they'd be able to do the Pandas. But next up, we've got an SJ200 called the Double Rose. This one's been marked down to $7,500. Typically, the guitars in this guy's shop range from $5,000 and like $150,000. Because before the Dragon Les Paul, there was the Dragon 400. So this one, we've got some beautiful roses on here. Once again, the abalone mixed with mother of pearl of different hues. And then we got the Grover Imperials. And then, of course, we move to the body. And yeah, SJ200, it's got all that stuff. Double pickguard, roses. It's cool. But as a primarily electric guitar channel, I always get teased by these really fancy acoustics, you know, hoping it'd be a solid body electric guitar, because sometimes he does have them. So I'm not saying that this thing isn't cool. It's just not what I'm usually looking for. Interesting choice to have a black sprayed neck like that. But I wanted to bring that up for our main feature tonight, and the reason why I had to make this episode. He had posted this to Reverb, and I was like, oh man, there it is, another super fancy acoustic guitar. We've got the old pre-war Gibson style logo, maybe a little bit thicker and bolder than usual, but we've got that same rose pattern here, except for it looks like we got a little bit more pearl here, and then you just get the abalone leaves, so they made it bigger, and then we've got the vines going up and along here. And then I really like this truss rod cover. That's some nice pearl. And then they decided to throw the Gibson G on it just for good measure. I'm not sure people would know what that is if it wasn't for the headstock matching that particular style. But they used some choice shell on that. But imagine my surprise when I get to the body and it's a Les Paul. Purple quilt top, really faded out. You've got the gold hardware, Nashville style bridge. They didn't go crazy with the knobs or anything. I am shocked to see that it looks like they did put a pickguard on it at the factory. Usually they don't on these art pieces, but that looks like a really nice moving quilt top. Then when you flip it over to the back, it's just white for the sides and the neck. So they didn't go too crazy like with quilted veneers back here or maple necks, anything like that. It still has our normal binding. Basically, this one is all about the headstock, and then our fretboard, they decided to do a continuation of the rose theme, and it looks like they did that on an ebony board. Trust me, these art pieces, you can't appreciate them enough in photos. Being in the presence of one and having it in your hands and being able to move it and seeing how the shell dances in the light, that's what makes these things worth so much money. Most people just scoff at these, like, this one is pretty crazy, but wouldn't it be fun to document it? Personally, I think I'll stick with my Dragon Les Paul. But I always appreciate that this guy sticks his neck out to make these cool custom orders. And most of the time, it actually turns out pretty good for him. So how much is this one being listed for? $30,000 plus $300 shipping. You're welcome to make an offer. Somebody's probably already offered them at least $1 for it. And if you go down here to read the description, utilizes gold, mother of pearl, regular pearl, and abalone. But he's saying it's extremely rare for Gibson to do masterpieces of this caliber. And he is right. Even if you have the money, they have such a backlog, they don't normally want these really crazy ornate ones. They highly limit how many of these things they produce. I had to message him, another great one, and then he told me he ordered this all the way back in 2018 and he just now got it. So that's a crazy lead time, 5 years, you have to pay up front. They went through a change in ownership within the company. That is the story of a lot of his guitars, like they were pending orders that they had promised him. But while we're here, let's take a look at some other stuff. So we've got a Martin OM Wolf. This one's pretty interesting. I like the wood-burnt wolf into our little tiny flamed pickguard. I'd imagine you'd still get some flamey movement within the animal design at the same time, but that is some great artwork there. But then if you zoom out, you get this really nice pelt finish. In Gibson territory, we call it the Cobra burst, but I think they're going for like a black and white wolf in this case. Very nice subdued quilt top, but at the same time, you don't find maple-topped acoustics very often. They definitely wanted to make that a fancy boy. I like the way that the rosette just kind of disappears into the figuring. And then check out our cool herringbone binding that's black. Before you get to the paw prints running up and down your neck here, all done up in mother of pearl. And ooh, nice. I like that headstock. Stereotypical wolf howling to the moon, but it works perfect. Because all they had to do is get a circle of mother of pearl and cut out a wolf from it, and the job's done. That's an example of being tasteful. And the back is pretty much the same. Again, I would love to see one of these in Les Paul custom format. I'd be curious to see how this one sounds, for the most part being made of maple. But that one's offered at $10,000. And then here's an interesting one from Washburn with a dolphin on the headstock. So that looks like a combination of two different styles of mother of pearl. But then you've got these really rosewood looking pieces over here that all have a different vibe to them. The center pieces are a little bit more straight. These ones are more wavy and exotic. Reminds me of Brazilian rosewood. We'll have to check out the description. And the Washburn logo actually looks pretty good how they have it in that circle. But then on the edges, you get a taste of the water. Then you go to the body and it's like, oh, we've got dolphin holes with a pickguard that I thought was meant to be like a surfboard. However, I think it might be trying to be another dolphin. It's got the general layout and shape. I guess it can be whatever you want it to be. Your tailpiece is more the same. You got kind of an interesting curved bridge. Then the inlay work on the neck is quite spectacular. That must have been tricky. Like, if somebody says, I want the ocean on the fretboard, that must have taken some time to be like, okay, how exactly do I do that? So you got the top of the wave crashing over itself, that you do that in mother of pearl, and then you just get the wave lines as like small little trinkets. I mean, that's gotta be time consuming to put into the fretboard. Then you've got like the horizon just as a big long squiggly thing. That must have been a pain in the butt. Then we've got some sort of a sailboat. Before up here, you get some of the clouds, you get the sun on the horizon, more of the same. Then, of course, the edges are quilty maple, the back's all mapley. Hey, there we go, another little dolphin on our heel cap. That's a nice touch. And then we get our multi-piece flame maple neck. So this is one fancy boy acoustic. I'm not really sure when would be the most appropriate time to play something like this, but it's a great demonstration of what a master artisan can do. But who created this one? So Washburn by Yuriy Shishkov, which he's very, very well known for the Fender custom shop nowadays, but according to Landon here, he built this in 1999, just before joining the Fender family. If you want to check out one of his master-built guitars, we documented a COVID relief telly of his. I've got to say, I really like what he did on this one. That one's been for sale for a couple of years, so feel free to make him an offer. $17,500. But now before our big finish, let's dial things back. This is one of the more budget-friendly ones in his shop, a Gibson SJ200 12-string. You're familiar with this style headstock, you know, minus the 12-string thing, the Gibson with the crown logo. There are a few models that utilize the double crown. They threw this one on an interesting 12-string. It has a classics truss rod cover. Then when we get to the body, it's just a regular J200 with a little bit extra inlay work. But as far as Landon's shop, this is very, very tame. That back is a nice vintage sunburst color. Almost looks book matched because of these dots right there. But we've got a rosewood fretboard with our crown inlays. The reason I wanted to share this one, in 1994, the first year that Gibson utilized the year production number, specifically for their 100th anniversary, the acoustics never adopted that. So if you happen to be looking for your birthday, birth year guitar and you were born in this year, you would have to look for an acoustic to actually be able to find it. So this is the 178th day of 1994. And it looks like this one was actually played. And we've got an SKB hard shell case. And to round things out tonight, there was one more that caught my attention on this page. We've got these little China dragon things all over the headstock of this one. Then it looks like we've got a wooden binding along with other layers of binding. I'm imagining this is like a pearl material, so this will change quite significantly in person. I could be wrong on that. Maybe they're going for the more marble vibes. Interesting that this one's crafted with a 0 fret with what looks like gold fret wire. For our inlays, it's just the sky. You got the sun coming here. The fretwork looks phenomenal on that. But then somewhere along the way, we get all of this other inlay work. Like, that must have took forever. I mean, look at these little bonsai trees. Well, in our perspective anyways, it looks like maybe a waterfall. Got some mountains, your sky, forest. You can definitely tell this is all hand inlaid. You can't do CNCs of this. At the same time, there's so much inlay work that it makes it hard to appreciate it because it starts to become like a collage. But that looks like we might have like a real wooden binding along the edges. And it looks like this green stuff has like some sparkly elements to it as well. But as far as the guitar face itself, it just looks like this. Again, looking like the wooden binding. We have some sort of another Panda here, come on. We just need to call this one the Panda episode. But that's the pick guard. We've got a really fancy rosette. But if you really go in close on that rosette, they've got like brickwork around it. So this is supposed to be Great Wall of China themed, which becomes a little bit more apparent when you flip it over to the back. You've got some nice dark woods. They didn't do anything too crazy with the neck besides being crafted out of multiple pieces of wood, having that heel cap. But there's a whole bunch more inlay work here, and apparently it took them 4 years to create this, which I can totally believe. And we've even got some more bricks along the edge with a small passageway in. So put your guess down in the comments how much you think this one would be worth. Because I was flabbergasted. I just clicked on it because, oh, China Dragon, let's take a look at it. Did you guess $175,000? That's an art piece that's too expensive to touch. The story behind it is Harvey Leach. He's the one that Martin calls up when they need something special designed for like an anniversary guitar. Other examples of his work is the 1.5 millionth Martin, the Da Vinci, the Martin Cowboy Custom for the 1 millionth Martin, and like the Hot Rod model, among a few others. A little bit too expensive for my taste, but hey, there are some big players out there for art guitars. So even if it's not to your style, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at these with me today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.